Welcome to the Stories of Starting podcast. I'm Heather Boyd. As a self-employed artist for the last 30 years, I'm fascinated with people's passions and creative projects. In this series, we discover how people like you have started new projects by thinking outside the box, going with the flow, and tapping into their childhood imagination. So guys, welcome to Stories of Starting, and today we're here with my friend George. And I'm going to get George to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does.
Oh, great. So I am the managing director of Khaos. The best way to explain what I do, I'm a filmmaker by trade, but I also do a lot of marketing and a lot of just like creative and brand building, and basically anything that revolves around story I've definitely touched at this point in my life. So everything from audio to photography to design, and yeah, it's been a crazy journey for sure. So it's whenever someone asks me, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh God, I don't know how to answer this anymore."
Yeah, it's a loaded question.
It is.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I've been wanting to have George on the podcast for a long time because I was on George's podcast a couple of years ago, 2 summers ago, I think.
Something like that, yeah. Or a summer ago, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
That's it. And but I'm going to start off by backtracking a little bit, as I always do, to say how we met. We met each other, and so I think it goes back to, I went to the Buffer Festival a few years ago, which is a YouTuber festival in Toronto, and I met a mutual friend, Dave, who was running a YouTube channel called Liquid Courage at that time, and so you were helping Dave produce his videos and all of that stuff. So when I met Dave in Toronto, Dave was like, "Heather, we gotta collab sometime," and I was like,
because that's what Dave always says as well.
That's what he does, exactly. And I was like, "Dave, you're a bartender. I don't drink. What are we gonna do?" Anyways,
mocktails, obviously mocktails.
That's it. Which I didn't end up doing, but I ended up making him a little gadget to go in his drink.
I know. I was really jealous about that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was cool, eh? But so what happened was Dave was like, "Oh, come to the studio. Watch us film and whatever." So Mimi and I went to the studio. We had the address. We went up. And we arrived there, and it's okay. This is an apartment. So we went upstairs and. Lo and behold, we walk into George's apartment.
Yeah, my old apartment. That was what we used to film Dave's set.
Exactly, that's it. So you've definitely come a long way since that.
I'd like to think so, yeah, because I think at that point we were also using my living room as an office. Not a good call.
Oh, yes.
Not a good call. I have learned my lesson.
It was pretty packed, and you had a bunch of friends there too, so Mimi and I kind of made our way in there. But I was fascinated because I've never really seen a behind-the-scenes setup for filming video. I used to film on my iPod, and that was about it. Which was something else that you helped me with, was something you were doing at the time. You were working with a couple of buddies with a company called Voco Studios. You guys had started your own business. So I guess that was sort of almost the starting point of the evolution of your own business.
Yeah, definitely. That was like the first foray into doing video and kind of storytelling from a definitely commercial standpoint.
Yes.
That was nuts. Again, that like in terms of like what happened with Voco Studios, it was like I had this crazy idea where because while I was at McGill, I got really super involved with the film community there through TVM.
Okay.
So TV McGill. So and then what I loved about it was the fact that you just got access to equipment and you could create. And I love that concept, and I was like, "Oh, this should just exist in the world. Like, there shouldn't be film schools, like because you just go in the network and you don't really get to like do real practicum a lot of times. Or like if you're trying to work your way up the industry, it's like you end up getting coffee for about 4 years, and like it's a really grunt level work. And I think it just, given the technology where it is and the creativity, it's like you can have people just kind of start. So something that was kind of what we were trying to do, was like kind of create a new service where you could actually get hands-on experience right off the gate, but we definitely failed.
Well, you succeeded with me because I remember I had a consultation with you guys, and you got me set up with not only like just using the equipment I had, teaching me what I needed to upgrade, and then the editing and all that stuff. So I definitely benefited and learned a lot. And like any venture we do, it's always a stepping stone to the next spot, right?
Of course, 100%. Like it's something that like even to this day, like while how we started definitely failed. It's still something where, to be very honest, like I'm still working on that, and like I know that like I want to come back to that original idea, like 5 to 10 years from now, like where it's like after building up some more infrastructure. Because what really ended up happening a lot of times was that we were so fresh and new, like we knew nothing. And it's like no one's gonna take you seriously when you don't have anything to back up those things. Where it's like, and that's where it's really been interesting now the last couple of years, or like or even today, where people ask me like, oh, hey, have you done this? And I'm like, oh, actually, like I can like go reach out into a bag and be like, oh yeah, I've kind of done something along this line. Where it's become really interesting, where it's like I kind of forget about all the projects that have kind of come up since then.
And I remember one project you worked on I was fascinated with. It was called, what was it, Chat with Tea, or what was that one called?
Yeah, that was Vent Over Tea.
Vent Over Tea, and I thought, I mean, the videos that you made was wonderful, and the concept was so cool, and so I think that's a really interesting part of what you're doing too, is meeting all these interesting entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. Yeah,
definitely. This is where I think I am very lucky that my career started very much in entrepreneurship and in startup culture. So I got highly involved with the McGill Entrepreneur Network, so the Dobson Center at McGill. And like because basically that was one thing I think through Voco Studios that was like probably one of the best things, was that we actually did some of the programming through the Dobson Center. So we got connected, and then once Voco Studios kind of exploded, I kind of just stayed in touch with the Dobson Center. They became a client at some point, where it's like I did their entire videos for about a year and a bit, like all their video content, and I love being in that world because I got to tell stories about the entrepreneurs that were going in there, and you start to like chat, and it's now I have like a couple of years worth of like the people that have gone through those programs, where like I actually know them and I talk to them on a regular basis, and it's like it becomes very interesting, where it's like when I'm getting super stressed, I can go talk to like my friend like Will at Nimbus Tutoring, or Martin, who had a business and then he failed. Now he's like working somewhere else, and you start to have those conversations of like, oh, you're not that crazy when you're starting, and it's like you're not that crazy when things are going bad. It's just like this is part of the process.
Yeah, no, it's true, and certainly where you're set up now at the WeWork is a fantastic. I mean, I've been to a couple of events that you had here, and just the energy of working, in a space where everybody is so passionate about their projects and what they're doing. It's a great space.
No, it was one of those things where it's like there's a reason why I was like when I started Khaos Labs, which then became Khaos. The first thing I think I did was literally come into WeWork and like get an office. Because I was like, I can't work from home. I learned that the hard way. I like to this day, like I don't bring my laptop home. I don't have internet in my house. Like I really do not work at home.
That's great.
Because I'm a workaholic, and I know that about myself.
That was on my list of things to talk about.
Oh, great! All the neuroses of like who I am just like coming out, and it's just like I'm a
bad thing.
No, it's like it's something that I've channeled into good things, but it's also something where like I'm hyper aware of like that can be really bad if I don't manage it properly.
That's it, but that's a great solution, and I agree with you. I mean, there's certain things I have to do at home because equipment wise, but I love that idea that you don't even have internet at home. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I know. The only issue now is that like Rogers introduced their infinite data plan, so I now always technically have access to the internet. But it's still like it has removed like me being able to sit down and actually like bring out my laptop, and I still like it's still trying to like basically be like set aside, don't look at it. I've thought about like even getting like a safety lock box and just like putting it in there and like having it on timer, so like I really can't touch it.
That's it. But at least you have it set up for that. That's really awesome. And I remember when you first came to WeWork, you had a shared office, and then you moved to a bigger space, and then now you have 2 spaces.
It kept on kind of escalating, where I started off in what they call like a dedicated area desk, where it was like about the space had about 50-60 desks in one room, and I just had one desk. And then I got like a 1-person office and a 2-person office, and then we kind of jumped to a full like 8-person office. Plus another like little storage area that we have for all the equipment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that was something where like at least for my own career, I invested in gear very early on, just because that was something that I thought it was really important to always be able to practice what we do. That's the one thing. It's been really interesting learning more and more about the industry, where it's like everyone rents, and I was like, which makes sense for like when like you really want to get the best equipment at all times for each shoot. But then I was always hesitant about that idea, because then a lot of times people don't end up having time to do things personally. And that's definitely cut a lot of time, because we have our gear in house, and we just kind of create whenever we need to.
It's true, and that's really interesting that you would mention it, because that's another thing on my list. I think we're on the same wavelength.
Clearly, or you just know me well enough.
Maybe I know you well enough.
Yeah.
But it's. I remember being like so impressed that you would invest in these high-end pieces of equipment. But like you said, it's a necessity in a certain way, and if you think of it in an esoteric sense, you think of it in a sense of sort of this whole law of attraction thing. When you're equipped, then the work comes to you, you know?
Exactly.
It's
oh man, yeah. I remember it was really funny because I've definitely at times like really bitten the bullet on like getting equipment too early or too soon. I remember I was about to like get a contract signed and like literally like everything was good. Everyone was like, this is great. And so me to be able to do the contract, I was like, okay, I need to go buy a new camera. That's like a cinema camera.
Right.
And then I do, and then the contract falls flat. And I was like, holy shit, how am I going to survive? I've just put in like $8,000 down on a camera.
Yeah.
And then I somehow haven't like I just somehow managed to scrape by.
Yeah.
And then that camera has been like our like workhorse for the last 2 years. Like and it's one of those things where I'm like that was like the dumbest thing to have done with our money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was looking back, it was like the best idea that I had. It was, and it's always been like that where it's terrifying, but I'm like sometimes I've just jumped and it just kind of blind hope that we land somewhere, and it's kind of worked.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, even the consultation that I did with you guys at the time, it seemed like a bit of a chunk of cash, but it was so worth it because you learn all these things that make our night and day for the work that you do.
That's the thing. It's like I think sometimes people forget that it does take a long time to get really good. Yeah. And it's like if you're not doing it on a daily basis, like you just don't get the same kind of reflexes.
Exactly.
Again, you know this, but the audience doesn't. But I used to daily vlog, and the reason why I daily vlogged for about 140 days straight was because I was actually getting so fed up with the content that I was not getting it because I didn't like the quality and it wasn't enough. So I was like, okay, I need to teach myself how to edit really quickly. Right. And two, it's just like I need to get good at the camera, like to actually know what I'm doing and operate it. And I want to say that was probably the smartest thing I've done. Yeah. In my I have so many. I have a solid amount of things. I'm not gonna lie. But that was like one of the better moves where, I remember how I taught myself to edit was I sat down and I think I went through all of lynda.com for about a month and a half. Like that was all I did. Amazing. And I went through all of the Adobe Suite. I learned all of the editing programs from Premiere, Final Cut. Audition, After Effects, Photoshop, like everything that was like Adobe and also like around it. And then, which was like a good kind of crash course.
It's incredible what you can learn online.
Yeah, and then it was just, but what then helped shape that was actually getting the practice on a regular basis.
Exactly. And I remember clearly your daily vlogs and how sad I was when you stopped doing them. And then you kind of went back into it for a bit, and they weren't long.
No,
they were just short clips but always interesting ideas. And I thought that was cool.
It's one of those things where like I always find that balance because like for me, I do like to do things highly polished and professional. Yeah. And that's where it was always the struggle for me, where the daily vlogs, they were always an afterthought, to be honest. Like I did it and like I knew it was practice, but it never felt like it was living up to the potential that I wanted it to be. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I know that eventually I'll get back to it, but probably in a different way.
Yeah, well that's it. Yeah. And there's certainly something to be said about doing something on a regular basis. I certainly know with my channel, I've set a schedule for myself. So I do like one live stream a week and one regular video, and it's a no-brainer now. I don't even question it. Yeah, just routine. You just do it and it works well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been really awesome to see where like you've just kept the consistency throughout the years. Like I've always been like so admiring of that fact on your front because it's like I feel like I've jumped through so many different iterations and like at the same, like while like the meta and the macro are all the same, like the micro on the day-to-day has been nothing but routine, or nothing but not routine.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But it certainly works for you right now, and you're delving into so many really interesting projects. Your most recent one sounds really cool. The film. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. So one of the things we do. So actually, in reality, what has happened is we started Khaos as a space an infrastructure company. But what ended up happening is that we split Khaos into two.
Okay.
Where there's Khaos, which is kind of commercial and then infrastructure based.
Right.
So a lot of time, like really, it's positioned as a creative agency where we're working with clients and we're building their brands and their content strategy. Also, just like actually doing their content with them.
Yeah.
And the other one is Khaos Labs, which is our creative original arm.
Nice.
There we have a couple of shorts and like working on documentary as well. But the most recent project has been a feature film.
Yeah.
And that was something that a really good friend of mine, who also now works with me, Guy Etlin, he's a director-writer. I've known him now for years. I knew him through McGill. And like we got a chance to be on student council together, and then we just kind of stayed in touch. And then he was always highly involved in theater.
Okay, cool.
So he was a director, he was a director in the theater kind of sphere at McGill a lot. And then he kind of came to me with a short back now a year and a half.
Okay.
And we did that and we were really happy. And then I ended up convincing him to like basically more like he had quit his job, but then I convinced him like, hey, come work at Khaos because like clearly this is what you want to be doing. Like you don't want to be working in a startup. You don't want to be using your economic degree. You just want to be storytelling. And then he presented to me this like ridiculous concept for a film. Which is like very much in the swingers, wedding crashers kind of vibe, where basically the idea is two British guys who think that they're life gurus want to, like, they think they've unlocked the secret to the perfect day, and they want to get a film made about that, and they realize that the place to do that is in Hollywood. So they're like, well, to stay in Hollywood and to stay in the States, we need to get green cards. So we have to clearly find two women in the States to marry us, and they go on this ridiculous road trip. They actually end up running into two women who are working on a documentary, and they kind of like both parties are kind of using each other for their own benefit. And I don't know how we did it. We ended up like raising, just through private investors, so friends and families, about $100K for production.
Amazing.
And and we put that all on screen, and like most of the crew, like we had a core crew of 8 people.
Okay.
And like so we did 3 days in London, about a week in Montreal. Like we filmed at the Montreal Casino. We filmed at a bar, Bootleggers. It was, it was like these. We had like these bigger sets in Montreal because we have the infrastructure. So for those days we were like with cast and crew, we were up to like 60 people with like extras and it was nuts. And then we went out west and we were there for about 2 weeks, where we were a week in Kelowna, which we used as California stand-in. And then we drove a 32 Ford RV down the west coast of like basically all the way through Yosemite to LA and then to Vegas and then back up.
Amazing.
Which is nuts and it's crazy. I don't know how we survived. We should not have the film that we do. Like we should have died. Like, I wasn't set to be like as involved as I was. Like I was just, I'm an executive producer. Like I'm just like, I'm here to support. I have the infrastructure, like legal, financial, all that stuff. But this is really much like a project that I don't have time for because we have everything else going on at Khaos.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is chaotic in its own way. I'm very proud of that naming.
Aptly named,
yes. I chose very well.
I can't wait to see the film.
I know, it's going to be a while.
You know, how different from the films you were starting off doing, more promotional things, and now you're right into a feature film. So in a very short period of time, I think that's pretty incredible.
Well, that was always, I did always set out to be both commercial and original content. Like that was like before we switched the name to Khaos, just almost more from a branding standpoint too. We did call it Nyx Labs. Well, I named it Nyx Labs because Nyx was the Greek goddess of night, and I love that. Like she gave birth to ether, which is light, and I love that duality about it. And I always thought that like. In my mind, there's no difference actually between commercial and original content. It's just good storytelling is good storytelling.
Something that I always remember that you said is whenever you go home and stay with your parents, that you and your dad watch a lot of movies. I think that's super cool. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's because it's interesting because like when you said like I was always in filmmaking, which for me it was weird because I wasn't one of those people like when they were like 7, 10, 15 like would be doing home films. I never did that.
Interesting.
The only time I think I really did, like I messed around a little bit with like iMovie just to cut like more like presentations and all that stuff just to polish it up.
Right.
And I remember doing a really big project in grade 12, which was it was a combination for 2 different classes in my high school, which was like music and writer's craft. Okay. So I basically wrote a short story and then turned that into a film, and then I used that film to score, which was really awesome, and I love that. But I just never assumed that I'd be in this world. I thought I'd be a science or philosophy kind of person because that's kind of what I got set up to be. I was like always super logical. People were like, you're smart, and then that was just the trajectory. So I never thought about creating. But then I remember going to university and I really hated my first year. Like it was, I had the worst experience, and it was really. There's a lot of different factors, but I was insanely depressed, and then I was watching way more Netflix. And, like, I binged everything. I was like, why? Like, I kind of had that moment of like clarity where I was like, I've always really loved storytelling. Where it's like I read a lot as a kid. Me and my dad watch movies all the time. Like that's what we do.
That's it.
And I was like, why don't I make this my life project?
Right.
Especially because originally I thought I was going to be a philosophy professor. Like I thought. I wanted to help people learn and like share complicated ideas. So like the best way to do that is actually by making content that's engaging, because I didn't like to be pretentious or like really inaccessible. I thought that was bad communication. I remember as a kid, I think I was like maybe 8, and we have a really close family friend who's an economics like professor, and also just like works in the government in economics, and he's like hyper logical, and he was trying to teach me something about math or something, and then I wasn't getting it, and then he got frustrated at me. I'm like, don't get frustrated at me, like get frustrated at you because you're not explaining it properly.
Exactly, that's it.
And that's always been my thought, where it's like like the best kind of teacher is the person that can explain it the most simply.
Yes.
And it's something like I know I'm not the best at all times, but I think that's something I strive for, is like, hey, how do you explain something to someone where they can understand? Because that's really good teaching.
It's giving people the right information at the right time, really.
Yeah, and it's also like I do always find it interesting where I find it way more useful to just be open and just give people all your bits of knowledge, especially because like most of the time people will really appreciate getting the knowledge. And then, a lot of people just won't execute on it. And then they're like, oh, that's why you're valuable, because you actually execute on the things you know about. I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of funny. It's just like that is like entrenched in our lives, where it's like it's always about getting there as quick as possible. And even as kids, like you can't wait to grow up. You can't wait to like get a car. You can't wait to like be able to drink. You can't, like, all these can't waits. Which is kind of the wrong way to look at it, where it's like he really has this beautiful analogy where it's like life is much more like a symphony, where you don't go to a symphony to literally listen to the last note.
Right.
You go to actually listen to the entire piece.
Exactly, like, because time is such a relative thing. It's interesting to look at time in another light.
You can live a very purposeful and meaningful life in any time frame.
Yes.
And then it becomes really struggle. Like I really struggle when people said it, where it's like you have to achieve something to bring meaning, because I don't know about your experiences, but like I know, like whenever I actually achieve what I set out to do, that's like the worst feeling.
Okay.
Because like you get that like one hit of dopamine where it's like, I've done it, and then you're like, now what?
And then is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, man, I have just talked my head off for the last like
you're gonna
30,
make my editing
minutes.
job a little bit difficult, but it's all good.
I do
we'll
that to
everyone.
I just talk really fast. I get really excited. That's the thing. I know. It's always been interesting because like I had a speech impediment when I was a kid.
Okay.
And it was very much, I think, because I try to keep up with where my thoughts are, and my thoughts just move really fast.
Yeah. So George, let us know where we can find you online, and what kind of services that you're offering at the moment.
Yeah. So for my own personal stuff, you can find me at George Popi, basically in every platform. Popi is the last name. For kind of chaos stuff, you can find us. It's Create Khaos, and Khaos is with a K, so that's pretty much our social handle, I think, on most fronts: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of about it.
That's so cool. And are your daily vlogs still on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, they still are. It was interesting with the daily vlogs. I took them off because like that was from a very tumultuous time. Though I think they're horrendous. They're still up there for prosperity's purposes.
And you had another podcast with Nick doing Two Guys Edit.
Yeah, we have Two Guys Edit.
That was interesting.
That was kind of our own little kind of weird experimental lab where we kind of did things. The last one we did, which I think we released, was like the ending is worth watching.
Cool.
Because we did some weird stuff.
Okay. I think I saw most of them, but maybe I missed that one.
But we also like on YouTube, George Popi, like that also hits all the content that was personal, where I was like dropping in, digging in.
The digging in podcast, of course, because I was on one, and Mimi was on one, and many of the people in our community were
in our network.
I'm going to link those up for sure.
Yeah, for sure. As well as I did start that Startup Life as well, which was another podcast. Had a couple episodes on that. It's something that might come back back up. But
I was going to ask you if you're going to get back into podcasting.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where there's so many different things to take care of, and I'm just kind of building up the infrastructure and the resources and the team to kind of start to be doing things a little bit better and hopefully a little bit more sanely.
Exactly.
That's kind of my goal. I think I've had 3 years of like pure insanity that I'm starting to be like, okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
Let's not kill me today. But I inevitably still end up like sleeping in the office and like working 18-hour days at times. But it happens.
But you go to the spa sometimes.
I do.
You
oh man.
said? Yeah,
That's
a good balance.
Yeah, and I've started seeing a personal trainer.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where I've started. It's been interesting because like I've started to have these conversations with people where it's like no longer like. At times I just felt like I was crazy for like the pace of life that I lead. But there's a point where now everyone's like, "Are you content with that?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, They're like, "Just keep doing that." And I'm like, "Okay, awesome." And then it's like, how do I do that in like a sane way, and how do I keep it so it's something that is manageable? So it's like, okay, like eat good food. Like exercise when you can. And also delegate those responsibilities because
that's it.
That was like I had my first session with the personal trainer, and I was so glad because like I could just go on autopilot for an hour, and I'm like, you're now working me. Like I'm happy to hit those metrics and the goals. Please, you tell me what I need to do, and then that will take care of me.
Exactly. I'm the same. I go full on with my work, but yet I go out to coffee shops, go out to comedy. All these things that I like. A lot of people tell me, "Oh my God, you go out so much," but I don't feel that I do. I think it's just balancing out the work life, and I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I've been having this debate lately where it's like I think I really dislike like this idea of life and work being like different parts. I very much am just trying to live. Where it's like both are just a part of my day to day, and I don't try to set them like they're not different. They're not an opposite or like they're not contradictory. Like they're just both the same thing.
I totally agree. I mean, I think one feeds the other, and I think it's definitely necessary. Certainly when I go to comedy, it feeds all what I do with writing comics or even in my videos or whatever. I think it all works together.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you for having me on.
And we'll see everybody the next time. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Stories of Starting. If you would like to inspire others with your story, big or small, be sure to reach out via storiesofstarting.com. Until next time, always remember, your story matters.